Hey, so I am going to give a couple thoughts after we just wrapped in Subversive Seminary on Howard Thurman's Jesus and the Disinherited. And I didn't get to post last time when we went through the hatred chapter. And for context, we went through the hatred chapter. The next day was January 6th, which, if you're in the US, you are aware that that is the day when there was the attempted coup by white nationalists on the Capitol, which spurred a variety of responses from people, especially people of color. And then the next time we, as a group, were meeting in Subversive Seminary was to go over the chapter on love. So I'm not going to be super long, but I did want to address a couple of things that came up that I thought were really important. So from the hatred chapter, there were a couple of thoughts that I just thought were really important. And now I have like a very different context for it, given what happened on January 6th and some of the responses that have and have not come out from the church community at large, particularly in the American church, in the evangelical church. But one of the beautiful things that was brought up, these are not my thoughts. So I am sharing my response to someone's thoughts from the group. We're talking about the issue with multicultural churches, and that multicultural churches put a front that you can show up in your context with your lived experience and your story. And it could be different than the person next to you or the person preaching or the person serving, and everybody's experience and context and perspective is welcome. And we're all going to come together and worship Jesus, just like it talks about in Revelation, where every tribe, nation, and tongue will come and worship God. Well, that is not the reality of multicultural churches. If you are a person who is marginalized on the cultural dimension and you've been in a multicultural church, you probably have had the experience of being rationed with how much of your culture is allowed to show up, and then it has to be shut down and conform into what is more acceptable in a white church or to whiteness. And one of the really, really wonderful contributors, female contributors in Subversive Seminary said, we have got to get to a place where we are gathering ethically or gathering responsibly. And I just thought that was so good, because what that means is that in our current mode of gathering, we are gathering unethically, and we are not being responsible with the way that we are gathering. And she was saying that we think that just coming together is going to solve the issue, but it's not. Because there is still this expectation, there is still this hierarchy, there is still this power over when we talk about coming together under this banner of multiculturalism that says you can come and you can look different than me or eat different than me, have some different things about your culture, but really it needs to be things that are generally acceptable in the space of whiteness. And if it's not, then it can't be here. And your perspectives and your experiences and your voice around Jesus and scripture and things like that are only welcome to a point. And sometimes, if they really don't fall in line with your traditional evangelicalism or white American church view, then it's not welcome at all. It has to still fall in line. That's not multicultural. That is not gathering responsibly and honoring the people who are there with you and listening to their stories, hearing them, taking them in, not dismissing them, not critiquing them, not discounting them, but saying, oh, does this person bring something in their voice, in their story, in their experience, in their narrative, in the way that they do family and community and food and hospitality? Is there something that this person can bring to the table that is going to teach me, show me how to follow Jesus in a way that I don't have access to? Do they, is what, and not do they, because they do, what is it? How can I be curious and have a posture of listening, simply to listen, simply to learn? And if I'm going to do anything, it's to affirm who they are and their experience, because I don't have all the answers. What I loved something that came up in a panel that Dr. Drew Hart did on Freedom Road podcast. One of the panelists was talking about going into white spaces as a Black woman and having to help people understand that things like white delusion and whiteness are not compatible with the Bible. They're not compatible with Scripture. And she said, she really wants people to understand where and how they are being arrogant with their interpretation of Scripture. And that's really what I think this woman in Subversive Seminary was talking about. People gather with an arrogance about their interpretation and their experience around Scripture and who Jesus is, as if one group of people has like the lock on it and everybody has to fall in line, when that's not the reality. And so I really, really appreciated that. And a brother talked about leaving one of those spaces and the complications that he encountered from that. And this expectation that this white male leader, hey, sorry about that. He is telling this white male leader about the issues that have gone on, about the problems, about, again, telling his narrative, his story, his perspective, his experience. Meanwhile, and the issues with it within the context of that relationship and within the context of that church. Meanwhile, the white male leader is looking for him to still make him comfortable, to still placate, say, oh, it's okay, still affirm, like, oh, but you tried, and all these other things, when it's like, but this is not the first time we've had this conversation. This is not new news. It's still going on. You will not listen to anybody else. And so I am leaving goodbye. And I'm not super concerned about this relationship, because this relationship is still about you, just like this whole, the church is not about true multiculturalism, true fellowship, where people are invited in with their context. And so the white leader says, well, don't you want to leave well? And the brother says, I don't want to leave well. I want to leave whole, because I have spent the currency of my soul in depositing myself in the bank of whiteness. And I'm done. You have taken and taken. I have said yes and conformed and done the things, and I'm not doing it anymore. And I am taking all of my money out of that bank, taking my whole currency of myself, and I'm leaving. And it doesn't matter to me that we are well, as much as it matters that I am leaving whole, with my whole entire self. And that was just a really beautiful thought. And as we talk about love going into the next chapter, there, I think, is a very big difference between what it looks like for the oppressed to love their enemy and for the oppressor to show love to those whom they have harmed. And when we talk about enemy love is this all-encompassing word, right, that can play out in very different ways. For somebody who is the oppressed loving their enemy, the harmed loving their enemy, it's not about roses and candy canes and I forgive you and blah, blah, blah. It is about truth telling. It is about being very direct and honest. In Jesus fashioning a whip and flipping the tables, he was being loving towards those who were in the temple, taking advantage of the marginalized people of that day. And so the loving thing, some people are like, that's not love. It is, because if you are involved in something that you inherently are forgetting who you are, from whence you have come, why you are even here. And you are holding on to things like money, like power, like privilege, like access, those things over and above who you were intended to be. Then the Creator is going to come and destroy the things that are keeping us bound, because that is what love looks like. Love is active and warm. It's not something that just lays to the side and just allows whatever's going on to go on and just let it continue because you want to make everybody feel good. Love is not about making you feel good. Love is about bringing you into the fullness of who you really are. And when we've allowed things to cover that truth up, to shroud our dignity, and we're not grounded in that, then there's an issue where those things need to be stripped away, taken away, where there needs to be a reckoning that happens. And those things are very uncomfortable often. And while the individual does not get destroyed, what the individual has held onto and what the individual has decided to be identified with primarily, those things get destroyed to be replaced with something that is dipped in the love of God, that dignity, that imago Dei, and that being the primary thing by which people see themselves, see others, and operate. So we are moving into another book soon. So I am excited to be back with some reflections from there. And I hope y'all have a really good day.